to take just a moment and introduce a special guy to us here at Hooked on Driving. One of our drivers and good customers, and also a good friend of mine, Charles Bassing. Charles, we have a story to tell, and we'll get right to the point, but I'd like to ask you, how did you get started driving with HOD?
I bought a Corvette and drove it around town and drove it out on the highways and started realizing this is very dangerous because I was driving it like I was 16. And ran into somebody that said, I belong to the North California Corvette Club. I checked them out, and somebody at the club had said, oh my God, we go to the racetrack. And it was Thunder Hill, and this is back in September 2008. And excuse the pun, but I was hooked from the first track day. I went the next month, the next month, the next month. I think I did about 20 track days in 20 months.
So folks that are watching the video right now might be having a conniption fit if they're Corvette fans because you have a Mustang shirt on.
I bought the Mustang. I got an opportunity to get that car, and it had the cage in it, and the cage to me represents just being responsible. Responsible myself and my family.
Yep, and it's obviously a track-only car now. You're bringing it in with a trailer. That happens a lot with our advanced drivers.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So we have with HOD, and I know you've participated, we have a fundraiser event every year called Deric's Day in honor of a gentleman named Derric Desmarteau, a medical professional who we lost several years ago to prostate cancer. And one day he was one of our favorite guys, driving a Mini first and then a Porsche. And one day he took me aside after an event and he said, Dave, want to tell you that I got checked by the doctor regularly for prostate cancer, but I hadn't been going to the labs. And I've got stage 4 prostate cancer. It's probably terminal. And we lost him over the next 6 months. So for 6 years, we're going into the 7th year doing Deric's Day to raise money for research and for awareness for prostate cancer. And that's many reasons why you're here. Charles, how did you encounter Deric's Day? Did you start participating with that event?
Well, I'd already been attending Hooked on Driving events, and then it was just it was a fundraiser, and there was things that I thought, well, that'd be fun to bid on, and it was when I was going to events almost every month. So I just came up and listened to people talk. I think actually his sister and some of their family came and expressed their appreciation for what you were doing and creating an awareness and also raising funds for, I think it was National Prostate
Cancer Foundation.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't think that I actually got the message at that event. I think I still had not gotten a PSA.
I got a very special phone call from you. It was kind of an emotional moment for both of us, but just before the holiday last year, kind of tell me how that whole thing came out after you went to the doctor.
Briefly, I did get the PSA and got the high test, and it's actually a good story. Went to the urologist and he said, you need to have a biopsy. Had a biopsy, called me up a few weeks later and said, negative. And there's a little bit of white blood cell. It doesn't make sense, but you're fine. And I put it off for 2 more years. Didn't have another PSA. I was in denial.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so then I thought I better go back. So I went back and I had a PSA that was a count of 9. Went in, got another biopsy from the same urologist, and he called back and said, negative. You're fine. And my wife was like, really? PSA keeps going up. And one of the things I think is very important for people to understand is if your PSA is going up, you can't listen to what your doctor says. If he doesn't find cancer, you have to get proactive and go get another opinion. Okay. PSA going up is a big indicator that something's not right. And what I've learned is biopsies find a cancer. It's like finding a raisin in a cake. Even though they do 12 samples, they typically only 1 in 5 times do they find cancer. So I thought I had no cancer. Yeah. And so we went to UCSF, different doctor, and they said, well, rather than just a biopsy, we want to do an MRI, which is a much more accurate way of finding a lesion. just a little spot in your prostate, which they did. And then they do a test on it, and they've got this measurement, and it was called the Gleason test. And they called me back right away and said, your Gleason count is 8. That's an aggressive cancer. You have to do something right now. And I was pretty freaked out. And interesting, well, not interesting enough, I realized right then, it's like, I do not want to die. So I'm going to get on top of this finally. And had the surgery. It was by a robotic surgery. It was pretty interesting. Only doctor in Marin County that does it. And came out of it. He came to the hospital that day and said, the cancer is entirely contained within your prostate. We did a examination of the prostate after the surgery, and the cancer is not outside of it, so you're in pretty good shape.
That's huge.
Yes. Yeah. And so now what I do is every 3 months I have that PSA checked, and I do it for a year and a half. And if a year and a half goes by and they do not detect any PSA in my blood, I'm probably going to be cancer-free.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I've gone 8 months now. I have a test next month. Got my fingers crossed. It's a little nerve-wracking the day of the go in there. I don't want a bad report, but you know.
Yeah, and I have to thank you. Right around the holiday last year, you gave me a call just out of nowhere and thanked, HOD for the involvement with Derric's Day and with PCF. And the kind of the summary statement you made to me is, it looks like I'm going to be able to live.
Yeah, absolutely. I was glad to be able to call you and give you the positive. I'm so impressed with what you're doing with it, because I feel like I definitely didn't jump on it, and I think a lot of men don't. Yeah. We're not interested in any examinations around most of our body, but especially that area, and it's just easy to avoid it. Yeah. So you're doing a great service just by putting it out there. Doesn't mean people are going to operate right away, but it's out there now, and people listen to you. Yeah.
Well, we want to thank Charles for sharing his story. It's a pretty special story, and we know it's going to be a good, positive final outcome. We're having a blast with you out on track today. And folks, guys, if you're over 40, you got to get checked every couple of years. And we really do want not only to have you support PCF.org, ProstateCancerFoundation.org. It's one of those organizations also working on research as well as knowledge and information. This is a cancer that guys do not need to die from. Mm-hmm. If you're on it and you pay attention, it's preventable. You can catch it in time, and we can cure. And so, guys, if you're over 40, get checked at the doctor and at the lab. And thanks for listening to this story. Charles Bassing.
Thank you.